Hey, what is up, guys? It's Mr. T coming at you live from NYC. Welcome back to Convos, our podcast over here at TimTalks. And hey, welcome back to another episode. Here's the deal, guys. So, if you're wondering why the acoustics sound a little bit different for this episode, we're making some renovations over at the studio, meaning there's some cleaning to do over there. But meanwhile, I have the living room available in my house, so I'm just gonna go ahead and use that. Hopefully it doesn't sound as different as you would hear in the studio. So again, I do apologize for that. I'm gonna be real just because I want to be honest with how the quality of the video sounds. If it doesn't sound as good, let me know just because in case the studio is ever being cleaned or what do you call it, renovated at the moment. I'm gonna try find another place in this house where to do this. So hopefully the acoustics sound okay. If not, let me know, and I'm gonna see what I can do about it. Okay. But for now, the show must go on, and the fact that your comments keep coming in, guys, which again, I'm always gonna say this every time we enter. Much obliged, much appreciated. I love you guys out there. You guys are awesome sending the stuff in. And just to get the feedback. For now, for today, I'm just by myself in the studio, or in this case, the living room, and someone was sending this to me something about anxiety. Okay, so before I get into the comment again, guys, so much appreciation. The channel, the podcast is coming on strong, and the fact that you guys out there are being so supportive and helpful with staying in tune with what's going on, and the fact that you guys are sending this over here. Again, I'm gonna keep repeating that, reiterating that you guys are what makes this possible, and I'm always gonna be appreciative of that. Okay. So this person sent this comment over here about anxiety. So this is how he or she went about it. So okay, a weird story, Mr. T, but I just checked my BP earlier and it was 140 over 100. Yeah, it's not good. Just put that in parentheses. I don't know. I'm just such a nervous wreck when it comes to things like grades, presentations, etc. It's so, freaking frustrating. Actually, it's not really freaking. She actually put something else, but I'm gonna censor it out just in case. It's so freaking frustrating. So, how the hell do I stop it? Right? So, um, first off, let's get down to the basics there. Guys, for anyone out there in the world, just whether you believe it or not, anxiety is real. It's actually, a condition for some people. For other people, it's just like a one-time thing, right? So, for example, if you're ever scared, or nervous, or afraid, that's actually natural of people to want to feel that, right? If anyone think that that's abnormal, take a check first. So let me just start first with what anxiety is in the first place, right? So anxiety is this condition where you feel nervous, or you feel afraid, or you feel fearful for certain things, certain situations and certain problems. And you can pretty much divide anxiety into two parts, two categories. You got rational anxiety, which is in the case of, for example, when something's gonna hurt you, or you got something high stakes coming up, like a test or whatever and whatnot. And also, for example, if you're experiencing something, just anything stressful, like a loss in the family, knock on wood, hopefully that doesn't happen with any of you guys out there. Or for example, you're moving, or for example, you got a new job coming up, and you're gonna get an interview for it, or you actually got it, and then you're gonna start off your first day, which is again from someone who is actually working. That I can relate to. But that's pretty much how rational anxiety is. But for irrational anxiety, it's things, for example, like let's say you're afraid of, for example, you're afraid of bathrooms, right? Now, as you all know, we're all gonna need a bathroom, right? Everyone needs a bathroom. But for some reason, you just have this fear that you attach to it. And again, it starts off with something rational. Let's say, for example, you had an accident in the bathroom, knock on wood again, that it never happens to anyone. And then, yeah, that's a rational fear at that moment. But if you have that keep on going all the time, that's where it becomes irrational, because you're depriving yourself of wanting to do that, like use the bathroom, do your business over there, and you're afraid, right? I apologize. That was just my phone over there in the studio. But anyways, so that's pretty much the categories that you have. I'm not gonna edit it out, by the way. Just be real. So you have rational and irrational anxiety, right? So you got those two categories, and that's usually where it boils down to when people have this kind of problem. So this person, whoever wrote this, she wrote here that her BP is here. His or her BP was 140 over 100. I'm not a doctor, but I do know that the normal BP is 120 over 80. Check the monitor; it should be there or lower for certain people, right? So this person is definitely scared just from looking at the 140 over 100. But sometimes you want to think, for example, I wasn't sure of this person's, like situation and whatnot, right? Was it just like a one-time thing or whatever, right? But for sure, this is not a normal BP, but again, this is not something that one could attribute to be having like all the time, right? And for example, whoever wrote this, if you had this, um, fret not, because I've seen people who had higher, and that is usually the case when it's like so extreme, so intense, and the fact that you're here, it's okay because this can lower, right? But now down to the things, for example, like grades and presentations. So what I'm getting here is that this person's a student, and this person being a student, again, I just graduated college recently, and even then, in college, I am a student, right? So I was a student and then I graduated, and even then I still had the same problems as what other people have had, right? Other students have had. When it comes down to grades, getting those A's and whatnot, presentations, honestly, before I started doing convos, like before I even was in college, I hated public speaking. I didn't want to go. It's so freaking hard sometimes to want to see the people, and you don't even know how they're gonna judge you, right? You don't even know how they're gonna base their grades on and whatnot, right? But apart from that, like I said, I feel when it comes down to being a student that it can get very stressful, especially when being pressured, right? So if you want to tackle anxiety, honestly, you can boil down to three things. um for example, in pertinence to a student, right? So one, are your parents pressuring you, right? So let's start off with number one. Are you ever being pressured by an adult figure, especially if it's in your family, right? Could be your mom, could be your dad, could be your grandparents, your aunts and uncles, or in my case, I'm a Filipino, I'm my tita or tito or whatever, right? Is anyone outside of that pressuring you, right? Because usually when you're a kid, you don't know yet at that moment what you're dealing with, right? And it's usually the adult figure who rationalizes it for you, right? And that sometimes can lead to anxiety because how is that adult helping you in regards to when you're scared, right? Because when you're scared and when you're afraid, that's a normal reaction, right? It's an emotion, right? But if you start to become irrational with the way it is, right? The first thing you want to look at is anyone outside of it. It's backwards. Usually you think, oh, you're gonna look at yourself, right? But the deal is when you are ever afraid, right? Like I said, you're a child, you don't know at all what it is that you're feeling or why you feel it, right? And you have someone else touching base on it for you, right? So look first toward any adult figure that guides you, right? Is that person affecting the way that you think, and in a bad way, right? Not to criticize parents or other adults who may be helping you in one way, right? But if it's something that makes you afraid of something that shouldn't be afraid of, best to leave out that advice, right? Because for all you know, that's how they were taught, right? Like I said, generational trauma. So usually the adult figure rationalizes or tries to make sense of a situation for you. And if it's not good, or if it doesn't help you and it makes you more scared, guess what? You're going to take that with you for the rest of life, right? Unless you break the cycle, right? And then you realize, oh my gosh, my parents, my adults may be throwing BS at me. They may be helpful at some points, but maybe not at other things, right? I've heard this story before about how there was this person who was, afraid of gaining weight. And the reason why is because the parents keep insisting that, oh, she's getting chubby, she's getting fat. And, that's honestly BS because, a child needs that, right? A child needs vitamins, minerals, nutrients, right? They need food, they need water, they need sustenance, those kind of things. And this person came up to grow and have this irrational fear in the story that I read online because of what had been put down by her parents. And honestly, it shouldn't have been like that, right? I'm not gonna criticize if this has happened to you guys in a way, to anyone out there, boy or girl, student or an adult or whatever, right? But again, the first step is to take a look at the ones who raised you, right? Yeah, they raised you. Did they raise you properly though? Did they raise you in a way where you're supposed to go about things and not be scared of it, right? Because really, it boils down to how they taught you. If they didn't teach you how to control that fear, that anger, those emotions, right? Yeah, you're gonna get anxiety, right? And then so that's the first advice. Second bit of advice, check your friends, right? Check your friends. Peer pressure is something really linked to anxiety. So, for example, whenever you're scared, right? For example, like presentations, right? You get stage fright. Question is why, right? If you, for example, when you're a child and then you're afraid of presenting in the front for the first time, right? And I guarantee you, there were some who were lucky enough to avoid that, which is awesome. Again, not to criticize anyone, but let's face it, right? Many of us probably didn't want to do that, right? That's messed up if you're gonna have to present to everyone and you don't even know where your grade's gonna come from, right? And that's terrifying. That's freaking terrifying. And to me, I wish my voice, the recorder, can actually get the emotion, but honestly, just the idea, right, of speaking, right, it can make anyone scared, anyone out in the public, right? And why do we feel that, right? And again, it stems from friends, right? Not only friends, but also the people you're with, right? Outside of parents and other adult figures, right? If you really look at it, so your friends, the way that you see them, right? For sure, for example, if you're afraid of your friends, right? If you're afraid of ever speaking in front of them, right? Or your classmates or whatever, right? Of course, you're gonna get scared out there when you're presenting, right? Um, and that's that's a normal reaction, right? Because especially when you're presenting for the first time, anything new to us for the first time is going to be horrifying. We are going to be absolutely frightened by the thought of wanting to do something that we don't even know what to do, right? And we're expected to do this, right? So again, that's another understandable thing to look at. Look at your friends and look at your classmates. Look at the ones who you think are giving you fear, right? Look at those people and just think, for example, right? Um, if not for my parents, are the people around me, apart from them, making me scared, right? Because if they're making you scared, right, there's got to be a way around that, right? So again, also look at them carefully. And the third bit of advice, just to pinpoint where that anxiety is coming from, look at yourself, right? If your parents didn't do anything that's harmful to you, if your friends didn't discourage you, then the third source is more likely how we take it, right? Because remember how we get anxiety, right? The only reason it becomes uncontrollable is because we feed the fear. We literally feed the anxiety, right? And again, it's not the fault of anyone. This happens naturally, right? Emotions are something that come about whether we know the situation or not. Like for example, when you got the job, right? Got the job at an interview and then you don't know what to feel, right? Because you just heard the info, right? Then the emotion comes later, right? And those kind of things, right? So again, we gotta look at ourselves and think, if no one is hurting me and nothing's affecting me, right? Where did it come from and where did it all start? Now again, what fear and anxiety likes to do, I'm going to speak it as if it were a person, right? Fear and anxiety, those things like to control, but at the same time try to hide. So they hide the source of where it came from, and then from there, um, what do you call that? You just get scared and you don't know why. So let me give you an example. When I was back home in Saipan, I had a fear of heights. And even now I'm still trying to get over it, but I noticed that family didn't say that, friends didn't say anything about being scared of heights. But I remember this time where I remember being next to a cliffside, a seaside cliff, and just seeing how far down. And it's a seaside cliff, so you got the waves crashing at you, the wind is strong, you can't hear anything, and then all that stimuli, and I was like, what, like 3 or 4, all that feelings that I was feeling. And I believe that that's where I attribute my fear of heights to. Just the fact that um seeing it there, right? And also the rails were not as sturdy, so I was afraid of falling. So think about that. You got this fear of falling, which is totally normal. I'm on a cliff. I'm on a freaking cliff, right? So I got that fear of falling alongside just the fear of being there because there was so much happening. I was very sensitive to sounds as well. So all of that was happening. And I think that's where my irrational fear of heights came from, even though I know that there's safety measures, right? So, for example, before back in Saipan, I used to be afraid of going up to the second dang floor. Let's imagine that, the second dang floor, and I couldn't really, my knees were shaking at that time, right? And like I said, I missed out on a lot of opportunities to see the sights and all that, right? Just because of it. But now, over here in NYC, and just a little bit of time, before I left, I got over it because I realized that no one caused that problem for me, not my family, not my friends. It was myself, right? But again, I was still young and I still didn't know what to think about at that time, right? I didn't even know what that fear was, what even being scared is, right? But then later on that I think about it, I really thought that that experience at the cliff, that was probably what did it, right? And to this person here, right, again, look at your family, look at your friends, and then look at yourself, right? The fear had to come from somewhere, that anxiety. Once you find out where it came from, there's 3 more bits of advice that I want to give you. And this goes out to anyone out there who has that anxiety, that fear, that phobia and all that shiz, right? So the first thing you want to do, right? So first off, think rationally, right? At the moment, try and think about that fear at that moment. Think about why you're scared, right? Because usually what it does is like the fear makes you want to not think. Have you guys noticed that? Like, for example, like think about the movies. Think about, like, for example, John Wick, right? How does he think at that moment, right? He's thinking, even though it's a stressful situation, he's still thinking because he's not afraid, right? Even though he was afraid at some point, but then he got over it, and then you realize I gotta think about it, right? So the first thing you gotta do is think about the situation, right? So for example, if you're worried about grades, think, how am I doing at that moment, right? How am I doing? And where do I go from there, right? If you're worried, for example, about grades, think about, did I miss any classes? Am I failing something? Is this teacher this giving me trouble? Are my parents stressing me out, freaking me out, right? So really boils down to thinking about the situation. Because what fear and anxiety doesn't want you to do is to think. Because that's how it gets worse. If you ain't thinking, it gets worse. The feeling of being scared, right? Okay, so there's that situation, right? So again, first thing you do is to think about what's happening, right? And then, number 2, think about what category is this? Is it rational or not, right? Is this feeling you're feeling rational? Is it true? Is it something that's real? Or is it irrational, like, oh, it's over the top, right? It's become too much. Because really, if you don't know what kind of fear this is, right? If you don't know how to justify it, then Why even be there, right? Because so you'd be surprised when I thought about my fear and I realized, oh, this is something irrational. This is something weird. That this is something that was so weird of me, right? To be afraid of heights and knowing that a window or a sturdy gate was in front of me, right? So I thought that's irrational. That's weird, right? Those kind of things, right? And the third thing you want to do with anxiety, find a way around it. So, for example, think about it to yourself that this is how you feel. For example, if it's a rational fear, a rational anxiety, just think like, yeah, this is normal. Usually, why people get so scared is because they think it's not normal, right? They think it's not normal to have to feel that, right? But being scared, being afraid, that's life. That's literally life in a nutshell, right? Because you can feel that, and there are gonna be situations where it happens, right? That's real. And then if it's irrational, you're thinking, Mr. T, what about if it's not um if it's stupid, right? If this fear that I'm fearing is stupid. But there is a way around that as well. Just think about, for example, it came from this, the way that I'm feeling, this irrational anxiety, that fear, it came from this, and from there, make a promise. That's what I did. Because I had an intense phobia of heights before. But I literally thought about it at one point. It was just random. I was sitting down in my bedroom and I was thinking, why am I afraid of heights? Again, that's step one. And then the second thing I thought of was, is this rational or irrational? Because there I can think, if it's rational, I can find a way to work with it, right? If it's irrational, I can find out a little bit about where it came from and what to do about it, right? And usually people think that that's a hard skill. That's why they need like a therapist and whatnot. That's only if the person really doesn't know, right? But if you have an idea without a shadow of a doubt about where it came from, that anxiety, hone in on it, right? Because then you realize, oh, this is what happened. This is the trauma, quote unquote, that I got, right? And then third is to make a plan, right? If it's something rational like grades, work for them, continue to do your best and get the support. And don't be afraid to stand up for yourself, those kind of things, right? And if it's irrational, know that don't continue to, what you want to do is to accept that it happened, right? If it's irrational, accept that it happened, that this is how you felt, and then make a sense out of it, right? Why did it become so bad? Because you're probably a child. This person who was probably a dipshit did that to you, right? Made you afraid of it, and then you got worse. Or, for example, maybe this other adult, or maybe these friends may be traumatized or whatever, right? It came from somewhere. But the best thing to do is, you want to accept that it happened, right? Anxiety hates when it's accepted, right? It hates the idea of, when people think about it. And then when you think about it, it has no control because you already made a logical sense out of it. Anxiety hates knowledge. It hates when a person thinks about its feeling, So again, to this person who left this comment out there in the world, again, your BP, hey, it's gonna go down. BP is something that only as you get older you have to watch out for it. But if you're still young, just check it over time, right? Only when it's consistently like that, then we check it out, right? But don't be afraid about it, right? It can go down. That's the thing that many people gotta notice is that BP is only at that moment, right? It's not definitive. It doesn't tell about anxiety or fear or whatever, right? So just watch out, right? And then relax, right? And I'm saying that as if it's simple, and honestly, it can be if we just let it go for the time being, right? Let go of the anxiety and fear for the moment and just hone in on the feelings, right? And then again, if you're nervous, know it's normal. We're not freaking supermen, right? We're literally people who can feel that tension, that pain, that feelings of sadness and joy, anxiety and fear, all that stuff. But hey, that's what makes us human, and that's how we are different from other creatures, That's how it is, right? And then, you know, things like grades and presentations of a student, again, those three steps again. First off, think about it. You're still a student. It does happen, right? And then also the fears that you feel, that anxiety, is it rational or not? If it And then the third step, if they are rational anxieties and fears, make a plan of how to approach it, right? And if you feel that you can't do it on your own, then you can get help at any time. Like I said, I'm always there for you guys out there in the world, wherever you are. And just that fear and anxiety, even that makes me scared, knowing that someone else is feeling that, right? Have a heart, right? That's what I feel. And don't mind, guys, if you hear sirens. I do live next to some hospital, so don't mind that, right? So again, if it's an rational anxiety or fear, make a plan for it, right? Get help if you need to, because there's always going to be someone. There's 7 freaking, or no, not 7 billion, 8 billion people out there in the world. Someone's got to be tuning in, honing on you if you need help. And then, if it's irrational, it happened. Pinpoint a time where it was the worst that you've ever felt, because the trauma that you felt when you got that anxiety is at its worst the moment it started. That's what makes it trauma, because the trauma came from an event, and then the event spiraled out of control, right? That's what makes it irrational, right? The best way to deal with that is acceptance. Literally, I accepted that fact that I was so scared about this one event. I was a child. I didn't know about the safety measures and all that, and I was scared. I was very sensitive. But now I can literally go up different buildings and say, hey, this is pretty cool. I can go up a hill, I can go up a mountain even, and say, hey, this is pretty awesome, just to see that, right? And now over in NYC, the land of skyscrapers, hey, at least I got over it, so that way I can enjoy the sight, enjoy the sights, be with family and whatever, right? And that's because I accepted the fact that I was scared at one point, and then I know how to go about it now. Now the deal is that, again, all these steps can be hindered by the fact that if you feel that you feel alone. But you ain't alone in all this. Every single dang human in the world has felt this emotion. Seriously, ask any person, they're gonna tell you something they were scared of. And again, we can't judge whether it's normal or not, right? That's not the point. We're not judging if, oh, this guy's normal, oh, this guy's a freak. F that. Screw that, right? No, it's not the case. It's usually where, is this rational or not? Is what you're feeling logical? Or is it something that's was a once in a lifetime thing, and then we just felt that, right? And again, guys, I'm saying as if it's easy. I understand if it's not. But know that there's always going to be someone out there in the world who's got your ass, who's got your back, literally, right? So, again, there's always going to be that. So, if you're ever anxious, or if you're ever scared, nervous, frightened, claustrophobic, whatever, right? It hates knowledge. All those feelings don't work when you are on top of things, when you're more knowledgeable about things, right? Think about where it came from. Which adult did it? Which child did it? Did you yourself make it happen, right? And then other 3 steps, just think about it. Check whether it's a real life anxiety driven thing, or if it's something that doesn't make any sense. And then the third step, if it's rational, make a plan. If it ain't, accept the fact that whatever had caused the event had happened, right? And like I said, it really takes time and practice, but always be sure. There's one last thing I gotta mention, is to seek help if you need it, right? Mental health is such, like something big. It's something that happens to everybody. And it decides the fact that, do we want to grow up being awesome, or do you want to grow up being a jerk, right? That kind of shiz, right? So really, The reason why I wanted to touch base on this is because I know what anxiety can do to a person. Because sometimes people can be insightful, but sometimes people forget to think, you know? I got that from God of War Ragnarok. If you guys played that game, check it out. You'll see who said that quote. But anyway, guys, you know, think about it. You know, don't be scared, don't be afraid, and don't be worried if you think that this ain't real, because it is real. It happens, but you will ultimately choose where you want to go from there. And if you need help, hey, Mr. T's got your back always. Every single dang time, I'm gonna have your back. Like, seriously, let me know of anything, right? Because the fact that this happens to people hurts my heart. And I'm saying that as if it were cheesy, and maybe the recording is picking it up like I'm a cheesy ass, right? But it happens. It does. It does when people get scared, and it sucks to know that people get scared for something that there's always going to be a plan to, or something that was something that happened in an event in life, and then you missed all those years of enjoying those events, right? And you know, if you had felt that, seriously, I feel you. I really do. So, hey, if you guys want to de-stress, if you're feeling stressful at the moment, right now, listen to this soundtrack and let's calm our asses down. Let's be chill for a bit, and then we'll end off this episode. All right, so hopefully these tunes had helped you chill out, and that's gonna be it for this episode of Convos. Again, a little bit longer than usual, even though I'm by myself. But hey, it is what it is, and the fact that anxiety does this to us, and it sucks that the way it feels, it makes our stomachs churn, eyes dry, mouth dry, nauseous, diarrheatic, or whatever, and those kind of things, right? And you know, just the simplest way to deal with it is to check and think, right? So again, check where it came from and really think about it, right? um i'll probably put the I'll probably put the steps that I left at the end. Maybe I'll just put it on right now. So again, here are all the steps. Take a snapshot of it, and hopefully if you guys know someone who's going through these anxieties, these fears, again, show this checklist, and see how it goes, right? Because would you want anyone to feel this? Because hell no, I don't want anyone else to feel this kind of thing, right? So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Again, please comment down below on YouTube, or feel free to PM me or DM me on my respective social media accounts if you guys want. And if you guys have any other questions, comments, or anything that you feel that I can discuss or I can help you out with, whether it be through a podcast, or whether it be a personal question that you want me to discuss with you. Again, I'm gonna be here always for you guys, and I always got your back. Because again, enough of this BS, right? Someone's got to get out there, share the truth, let it be heard, let it be known, and all that stuff, right? So again, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Please like, share, sub, and much love. I'll see y'all at the next episode. Much love once again. This is Mr. T signing off. Have an awesome day, everyone, and I'll see you at the next episode. Peace.